Investors. This is Andrew Holmes, and today we are talking about fear, right? So, what is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real, right? And but yet, fear is a huge motivator in some ways. In some ways, it stops us. So that's what we're going to address because all of us, doesn't matter how much we may seem that we're all successful or that we are not afraid, we all have a basic element, and that is called fear. So as we get started, make sure you are, if you have not joined Burr Cashflow Investors yet, and you're just watching this as a live, make sure you become a member of the group. And also, if you have any friends, family, invite them. And when you invite them, we will enter you into a drawing that we do every couple of months. The next prize for somebody who invites the most amount of people. So basically, if you have a bunch of people that join that you invited, we keep a track of it, and then we'll kind of pull a name out of the hat. And if you invited a bunch of people, then obviously you have a higher odds of winning. So the first prize that we had given away was a full set of appliances. Second one was a cruise for a couple, a cruise for two, basically. And this time it is airline tickets up to $2,000 in value for a couple of people. Maybe it's you and your spouse, significant other, or you and your kid. You want to go away on maybe a Vegas jaunt. So it's going to be something fun. Having said that, we do these every single week, and we do those on Mondays, Wednesdays, and on Fridays, unless I'm out of town or for some reason we can't do those. And the whole point of this is to make it educational, to make it fun, to be thought-provoking. At some points, we do deal analysis. So it's something that is supposed to be an educational thing, and it's not supposed to be any sort of pitch. Having said that, let's get started. So today, specifically, we're talking about fear. And as I said, a lot of times, you may have heard the definition, which is, what is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. And while that is a true definition in some things, right, fear is a very good thing. And fear is something that most human beings, right, 99.9% of human beings are born with it, right? There is a certain type of a human being, which is the sociopathy and the psychopath, that may not have fear, or they don't have necessarily feelings. So they may process differently. But for most of us, we have fear. And today we're talking about is, what is it that as it relates to real estate? So first I want to address this, that generally there are different types of fear. So we'll talk about those as it relates to investing. But what you have to understand is this, that if you are afraid of doing something new, right? Meaning, if somebody said to me today, hey, Andrew, can you take $1,000 and put it in crypto? I'd be like, I really don't believe in it because I don't understand it, right? I have no understanding of what it is. Maybe it makes money, maybe it doesn't make money, maybe it's speculation, maybe your money will get turned into a huge lottery ticket, who knows? But I don't understand it. So if somebody says, well, $1,000, let's just do it, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. 10,000. I'd be like, no, I don't think so, because it's just a waste of money. But could I do it? Yes. If I lose the money, would I be excited, jumping for joy? No, but is it going to basically, am I going to think about it in the next minute? Probably not, right? I'd be like, that was stupid, and move on with life. Now, what if it's 100,000, right? 100,000, is it going to change my lifestyle? No. What about if it's 1 million, right? Is it going to change my lifestyle? No, but I would be pretty pissed. And I would be pretty pissed at my own self that I could be that silly that I invested in something without understanding. Now, if I invest in something and I have done my research, I've done everything, that I'd be like, well, I'm not happy, but guess what? Now, am I going to be necessarily afraid that, oh my God, my life is over? No. If I lost $1 million, my life is not going to be over, right? What about, well, 2, well, 3, 4, or 5? At some point, there comes a point for all of us where it's like, oh my God. But guess where I started? I started at a point where I could not even afford to lose $1,000 because I didn't have it to lose. Meaning, if I had lost $1,000 on my first deal, right, I would have been very, very pissed off at myself. Number one, I would have felt like a failure, which is a big part of fear and not getting started. That's a big thing. right? And $1,000 could have recovered from it, sure, but I would have felt like a failure. That feeling of failure would have been more devastating than necessarily losing the $1,000. Today, I understand, right? That I mean, I've laughed about it. We have a cigar store that we still own, 159th Street in Tinley Park. It's a big place, right? It's about close to about 4,000 square feet. We did a huge build out over there, almost 400,000, 5,000 in build out. And when it actually, so somebody's trying to buy that business for the last 5 or 6 years, they're making payments every month to buy the business and then buy the building, right? And as long as they make payments, it's okay. But when the business is sold, the terms of it, at least on the business side, we're going to lose minimum, 250, if not $300,000, not counting the amount of money I put into it, amount of money Rahul put into it, right? We're basically losing money on that deal. And I can tell you with a straight face, it's a great investment. Why? Because now I know not to step out and do things that are not in my vertical. My vertical meaning real estate vertical. That was not real estate, that was a retail business, right? So that is a failure. And I can look at, oh my God, I failed. And I did 100% because I am not willing to be there in a cigar store and basically, deal with customers retail. Even if I could make 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 being in the store, let's just say, right? It's not worth it, right? Just for a mere 300,000 a year, it's not worth it for me. It's not worth it for 600,000. It's not worth it for 500,000. It's not worth it for $1 million. Why? Because I have other potential. Now, at the time when it was started, I didn't know that. Now, am I that bothered with it? No. Does it bother me? That was a stupid thing? Sure, right? It was like, well, but what has happened is I've been able to move on, and each year we build and build and build and build and build. So it is what it is. We laugh about it and forget about it. See, I could not have done that if financially I was fearful, oh my God, what is going to happen to me, right? So having fear, number one, is a good thing, right? The people that I'm afraid of are people who have no fear, right? Those are the people I'm afraid of. Why? Because number one, that person does not care about the consequences, right? Most of the times they have nothing to lose. Who's the worst person to sue? The person who is dead broke, right? That is the worst person to sue. Why? Because they have nothing. All you're going to do by suing them is you're going to waste your time. You're going to waste your money, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up, like a lot of times when we think about fear is something that we think about, oh my God, it stops us. It's actually, in some ways, it's a very good thing, right? Because what fear does is it makes us cautious. Fear does is it says, hey, guess what? You see a big drop, right? What do you feel when you look down it, right? You're not going to see, you could basically stand on a flat surface and not feel a thing, right? On the edge. I draw a line, you can stand right on the edge, right? But if there's a big, basically chasm right next to it, guess what happens? You're still on the flat surface. You're just looking at it. Oh my God, no. I'm going to stand a foot or two away. I don't want to fall. What is that? It's called fear of falling, fear of dying, fear of getting hurt, right? That fear is a good fear. Like when it's a child, right? A child would basically grab anything, right? If a child sees a snake, it sees basically a scorpion or whatever it is, guess what? The child doesn't know, right? It's curiosity and it's going to want to touch. An adult sees that. Guess what? We're programmed. You see a snake, for most human beings, I don't know what kind of snake it is. It may be a poisonous snake. It may be a normal, harmless snake. I don't know. But guess what? For most of us, unless we are used to dealing with that, we're going to recoil. And that is called a protective mechanism. The reason why I'm saying that is that a lot of times we look at fear as negative, right? And we always look at the mythic heroes, they're fearless, right? Listen, fearless people are martyrs. And I'm not saying that they're not heroes, but generally, when it comes to real estate or when it comes to business, being a business leader, going against the odds, and all of that kind of stuff is great. But you have to have a rationality to it, especially when we talk about real estate investing, right? There are stories of people where they'll go do something totally against the grain. and boom, it succeeds against all odds. Every business that you start, if you look at my business, you look at most people's businesses, we started on a hope and a prayer. But that does not mean that we were doing things in the wrong way, right? So what is fear based on as it comes to real estate? Number one, fear is based on fear of failure, meaning, oh my God, what if I fail? Right? And this is something that stops a lot of people, even people who are very, very successful, right? I'll give my example of my parents. They're very successful in their own right as doctors. Both of them were surgeons when they were alive. But yet, if I said to them, and I used to have all these business ideas even when I was a kid, right? And I'd say, hey, guys, there's a piece of real estate I would see, and I'm like, that's a great location. I didn't understand egress, ingress at the time, but I'm like, that's a great location. And this is back in India, mind you, for a gas station, right? Such and such person, let's put up a gas, and they're like, shut up and do your homework, right? This was their standard answer was, shut up and do your homework. No, that is too risky, right? Now, in a place like India at that time, where there's no gas station within miles, that's not risky on a busy intersection. Now, today I understand that, because today I would frame it differently. Hey, mom, hey, dad, guess what? That has a very high traffic count. There's ingress, there's egress on both sides. I think that will make sense, and I can probably put together a pitch deck and pitch that idea. You guys get my point. My point being is that what was their reaction based on? Their reaction was not based on a rational thought, right? Because they had the means, they had the ability, maybe not the time, obviously, right? They were busy being doctors. But my point being with that is that they never said, hey, this is not our cup of tea, but I bet you there are other people in town that if you pitch that idea to, it will be probably a successful idea. What they said was simple. Oh my God, business, too risky. No, doesn't make sense. What if you fail? Business has a lot of failure. Being a doctor or having a job is basically blah, meaning it has a lot of certainty to it. So a lot of times when people stop and don't do a lot with real estate or don't even get started, right? What they have is they have this thing, oh my God, what if I fail? So I want to kind of talk about how do you overcome that? The best way of overcoming that feeling of, oh my God, what if it fails? So what you have to do is you have to learn how to stack the chips. So what I mean by that is this, that you and I, if we walked into a casino, right? If you and I walked in and we just said, hey, listen, we're going to take $100 and we're going to take $100, both of us, and we're friends. We went on a nice dinner, said, okay, let's go to the casino. We're going to have basically play some, whatever you're going to play. I'm not a gambling kind of a guy, but let's just say we did. Okay, we can have fun. Doesn't really matter where the dice lands. If the 100 becomes 150, 160, 170, right? No big deal. If we lose it, it's no big deal. Why? Because the $100 is not a big enough amount of money that is going to affect your life. So what I mean by that is this, and how it relates to failure, that when you get started with anything, you have to learn when it comes to real estate, how to take small risks so that even if you have a failure, the failure is rather small. Then gradually, as you start, basically, if you walk in with $100 and you win 10, and then you take the 10 and take it off the table, put the 10 back in your pocket, guess what? How much you're playing with now? Right? 10 is back in your pocket. Now even though you have $100 on the table, now you're only playing with $90, right? Then again, maybe you go down from 100 to 95, but then you're up again 120. So you're at 120, you take the extra $20, you put it back in your pocket. Now what are you playing with? Now you're actually, even though you have $100 on the table, you're only playing with $70, right? Because you have $30 in your pocket now. Now, if you keep doing the same thing, there's going to come a point, if you understand the game and if you're good at it, right, that you're like, okay, well, no big deal. Even if I lose the $100, I already have $30 in my pocket. So what is my net loss? My net loss is $70. That's called stacking the odds in your favor. So even if you have a failure, the $70 loss, you're like, hey, man, oh, no, well, you laugh with your friend and you walk out of the casino, no big deal. You're not even going to think about it. Next day when you go to the office, you're going to be, oh my God, you won't believe what happened, man. I won so much money. Why? Because everybody that goes to the casino walks out winning. That's how they build bigger casinos, because they're going bankrupt. Of course, I'm kidding, right? That what it means is that you took a risk, you gambled, you played with it, no big deal, right? A lot of times what happens with people is in real estate, they don't understand the amount of risk they are taking when they are doing something. If I buy a property and I buy it at a very, very, very heavy discount, it's a very simple rehab, right? If it doesn't require a crazy amount of rehab, I get it done, I sell it. Let's just say I make no money in that deal. Did I lose anything? No. Did I lose time? Sure. Did I lose my effort? Sure. Did I lose all the frustration? 100%. But did it put me out of business? No. But guess what I did? I learned a lot of lessons, what not to do. So the first thing is fear of failure. So you have to learn how to take small risks and how to have enough knowledge so that you're stacking most of the odds in your failure, on your side, so your chances of success. The difference between somebody who has a lot of experience and the difference between somebody who does not. The person who has a lot of experience understands what is a risk and what is not risky. So a perfect example. People ask me all the time, aren't you afraid, Andrew, if the real estate prices go down? I'm like, no, I'm not afraid. I'm like, afraid of what? Right? Actually, I'm excited when the real estate prices come down. They're like, well, how come? That doesn't make any sense. Don't you own millions and millions and millions of dollars of real estate? I'm like, yeah, true. They're like, well, do you have any loans? I'm like, sure, billions, right? They're like, doesn't it scare you? I'm like, no, because the value of the properties is here, my loans owed is here, and I have this much cash flow that comes in every month, right? Even if the value comes down, and loan is here, and comes down, you realize that if I get in trouble, there are about 95% of the population of not only US, everybody else is in trouble because the delta between what I owe versus what it's worth is a lot. And all of that real estate provides cash flow. So when the prices come down, I can double down and I can buy more. So actually it is not risky, it is less risky. Guess what happened when we had last 2 years of inflation? If you owned a lot of real estate, you had basically a lot of real estate. If you had $10 million worth of real estate today, that same real estate is worth 13 million. If you had 20, 25, 30 million in real estate today, now suddenly your net worth from 30 million is going to be 35, 36 million. Why? Because guess what happened? The dollar lost value. That means the value for real estate went up because for the same 100,000, you can buy less today. So now, basically, you kept up and you beat the inflation. So a lot of times what happens is we mislabel, right? My parents used to mislabel what they thought was risk. What they considered, which was savings or investing in the stock market, they called it a safe option. Or buying gold, they called it a safe option. They thought they were doing the right thing. In fact, they were taking a lot more risk with their money. Fear is based on, do you really have the right information? The next thing fear is based on is lack of knowledge. So what I mean by that is this, like a lot of times people be like, oh my God, I'm afraid, I'm buying this house and I haven't seen the inside of the house. Andrew, how can you buy a property at auction where you've never seen the inside of the property? Right? It's a very valid question. And isn't that very risky? Well, no. If I know the area, if I've done all my homework, I've talked to the neighbors, I've looked everywhere else, I know it's not in an area generally where there are foundation problems. I've looked at the house from the inside, I've tried to talk to the owners or whoever people are living there from the outside. Generally, right? It's not a very risky property because generally in the area that we're looking at, in the Chicagoland area, or let's say in the Florida area, generally in the areas we're looking, we're not generally going to have a foundation issue, especially if the property's been in existence for a long time. Now, are there properties that have foundation issues? 100%. But statistically, the odds are in your favor. So what is the risk? Oh my God, the house inside may be a disaster. No problem. That's something that we can work on. We can do the plumbing, we can do the electrical, we can do the roof, we can do all the drywall, and I can account for that, and I can build an enough discount in the deal so that if I'm buying it at the right number, my risk on the upside is covered. So a lot of times somebody would look at it and go, oh my God, I would be so afraid. I could never imagine. Guys, listen, when I bought the first property at auction, right, I was afraid just like you, right? And this was very, very, very scary. And it was a vacant property. And I still remember I gave the check for $25 to Page County to the lady at the auction, and I literally walked out and I'm like, oh my God, the property cost $70,000, right? At that time. And I was at the time buying 2, 3 properties at a time. And I did not have $70,000 necessarily to lose. Now, would I have gone bankrupt? Probably not, but it would have been a not a pleasant day at all for me in any shape, way, or form. But I gave up $25,000. I went back to the property 4, 5, 6, 7 times because next day I had to give the rest of the amount, right? And it was scary because I thought I had done my research. I looked through the windows, right? I mean, I tried doing every single thing. And I remember with this guy, his name is Muhammad, right? At the auction, he said, man, you won the auction. I came late, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to buy the property or not. And, so maybe he's like, dude, let me know. I'll give you 5. What that meant was, hey, I give you $5,000 extra if you just give me the property, right? See, he was experienced. He knew, and he came late to the auction. The auction already took place. I won the bid. And here I am, paranoid. Glendale Heights, right? Fantastic location. And guess why? Today, I'm upset because I sold that property, bought it for $70,000, sold it for $189,000, put in about $25,000, $26,000 in work. At the time when I sold it, I was so ecstatic, made $55,000. Today, I feel like a stupido, right? I mean, complete stupido. Why? Because ideally, I wish I didn't have to sell the property. At that time, $55,000 was all the money on a flip in the world to me today, at that time. Today, I could care less, right? But at that time, I was like, oh my God. And I was so thrilled. See, what it was based on was my fear, was a real fear. It's not that I shouldn't be afraid as to condition property. I just didn't have enough information. And this guy, Mo, he had a lot more information than me. And so he was basically willing to say, hey, dude, I'll give you extra 5. Just give me the property. Because he knew what I didn't know. And that is based on knowledge, right? The next thing comes down to is financial concern, which I kind of addressed. Oh my God, what is going to happen, right? So last week, some of you guys saw, I was looking for a car, right? And so I fly all the way down. I had to go to Punta Gorda for follow-up on Florida construction, flew up to Orlando, and I wanted to go look at this car. So because there's this particular red color I like, and I've been looking for this car all throughout the United States, couldn't find it, went and picked up the car. And somebody that they asked me, oh my God, what does something like that cost, right? So I'm like, I don't know, $280,000, something like that, right? And they're like, aren't you concerned? I'm like, concerned about what? They're like, well, what about if you need a brake job on it? I'm like, well, it's $22,000 for a brake job, right? He's like, well, aren't you afraid of that? I'm like, afraid of what? Afraid of $22,000? I'm like, I don't think so. Now, mind you, right? At one time, I couldn't afford a car for $5,000. Forget about $22,000, right? So they have a financial concern in their mind for me, right? And I'm like, listen, man, the average car in the United States today that most people are driving, it probably doesn't even cost $22,000. I realize that for sure. So I'm clear on it. It's just that $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 today, in today's date, I'm the same guy who could not pay for tires that cost $1,000, all 4 tires. So I understand the financial concern, but today that is not a concern. If it was $122,000, maybe I would think about it, right? Or if it was $220,000 or $320,000, I would have to think about it. But for that kind of money, relatively, it's not that much money. Again, it goes back to point 1, which is, what is your risk threshold? See, if you're the type of person that goes and buys something and you're like, you can't afford it. And if something breaks down, something happens, or the house that you bought, if something goes sideways, that your financial future is going to be ruined based on that one house, then guess what? You shouldn't be doing it. See, I don't take those kind of risks where because of one mistake, because we all will make a mistake. The cigar store example I was telling you, that was a mistake. I did my research. I did my homework. I have a friend of mine who has a couple, 2 or 3 of these, does very well with them. But guess what? Didn't work for me for whatever reason, right? I'm number one, he's there willing to put his time in. I'm not willing to put my time in. It's just not worth it, right? And a lot of times this exact thing, the financial thing, goes back to, do you have the ability to be able to carry through the risk? I mean, think about what happened in 2008. Properties that were worth, so perfect example, we have a property, example is in Lombard, right? In 2005, that property, 3-unit building, sold for $365,000. In 2010, I bought that same property, I bought for $120,000. I put $30,000 in work into that property, rented it out. We've owned it since then. Till today, we still own the property. You realize right now, got a postcard from the homeowner, from an agent right next door. They sold the property on Grove in Berwyn. He's like, your neighbor's property I just sold for $500,000. See, the property didn't change. It just went through a spin cycle, right? The difference was I bought it at the bottom of the spin cycle. There were a bunch of people who bought properties at 250. They went down to 140 in value, and then guess what they are today? They are up at 3, 4, 500,000, right? A lot of times when you think about this, is the question you have to ask yourself is, do I have the sustainability of being able to absorb that spin? A lot of times in mastery, just was talking to today, I mean, it's Mona Linda. She just found a property, her very first wholesale deal, right? And this is a property she's got a wholesale because she's not going to be able to do the rehab. Why? Because she doesn't have experience yet, right? Not in the future, but yet she doesn't have the experience. And if she has to make $2,700 payments while the flip is going on, that is not going to be financially possible for her yet. That doesn't mean, so she's going to get $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in most cases, and then she's going to have to walk away from the property, right? That doesn't mean that that's not a good property. That's just not a good property for her, given her financial situation. So it depends that whenever you're afraid, oh my God, can I take the risk? You have to always look at, what is my ability to be able to hold through and get through the tough times? The next one is the fear of unknown. And this, we all have that, right? I mean, probably one of the biggest things, whenever we do the 3-day, we've done about 27 of those, right? And every single time, I always feel nobody's going to show up, right? Now, we'll have hundreds of people signed up, right? We'll have hundreds of people signed up. But guess what? If there's one empty chair in the room, it bothers me, right? I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to show up. Maybe it's too cold. Maybe it's too hot. Maybe it's not nice outside. What is that? It's called fear of unknown. I don't want to be, even though financially, right? Even if nobody showed up, what's going to happen? I lose $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Is that the end of everything? No. But yet, what would it be? It, for me, would be a failure, right? And I don't want to feel like a failure. And that is the fear of unknown, right? And we create that unknown. All of us do this in different ways in our lives, right? We create these unknowns. And the difference is this. The only difference is, every single time when I first bought a car for $149,000, $150,000, right? I always wanted, like, I'm going to buy something fun. So I bought this, what's called a Maserati MC Gran Turismo, right? And $150,000, I'd never spent that kind of money on a stupid car. And I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Can I really afford it? Is this something that is smart or not smart? And I was afraid. That thing crashed. I bought another one, red one, next time. And I'm like, again, the same fear. When I bought the first airplane, same exact fear. Am I stupid? Should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Should I do it? When I bought a bigger one, it's the same exact thing. When I bought the Bentley or the Rolls or now the new one, right? It's each time when we bought the office building where we're at today. And I'm like, are we doing the right thing to buy a 15,000 square foot building from a basement, 800 square foot basement where we operated out of for last 10, 12 years, right? And we make do with what we have. You got to. But then each time you grow, if you're not afraid, if you're not thinking, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? And if you don't have that fear, if you don't have that self-doubt to a certain extent, right? If you just go ahead and go do it without thinking through, guess what? Your odds of failure are going to be a lot higher. So doubting yourself, having fear is not bad, right? You just have to kind of put it in context. Is this something that makes sense? And then, even though you have the fear, even though you're afraid, right? You have to take the first step. I mean, I still remember at the office in Roselle when I used to do those Tuesday night workshops. Sometimes literally one person showed up, and sometimes it was 20 people. And this was all within a matter of a month, right? Sometimes it would be 2 people, and I would feel embarrassed for myself. People didn't care if I gave them great information. They're like, oh my God, this is great. We get to talk to you. We get a bunch of great information. People could care less, right? And I would always make a joke because I felt so embarrassed that what a loser. 2 people showed up. I must not have anything of value to say, right? But yet, guess what you have to do? If you have a dream, if you believe that you want to move forward, you got to follow through, and you got to take kind of measured risk, because guess what, guys? Fear is going to be with you, and it's going to be with you not because it's a bad thing. It's there for self-preservation, right? It is there so that we as humans are built that way, because it's that fight or flight, right? And a lot of times, just because you don't, I mean, if you have a 357 Magnum and somebody's got a Uzi or an AK-47, you may not want to fight them. If you're afraid at that time, you're probably wise, right? Because the enemy is a lot bigger than you. They have a bigger gun. So you may not want to fight. So basically at that point, being afraid and making yourself scarce is called the wise thing to do. So fear serves a purpose. You just cannot let fear control your life. The other big one that, before we wrap up, is actually 2 of them. And this is a big one for a lot of people. And that is fear of debt, right? Oh my God, I don't want to be in debt. If I'm in debt, oh my God, right? And especially if you're an immigrant, this is something that our parents have put that in our head, right? That, oh my God, you shouldn't have debt. Yet what they talked about was, what they're talking about is debt on a credit card for bad purposes. Debt to buy stuff because your assets are going to go up in value. Like every month, I probably have a credit card bill of about 200 to 250,000 bucks every single month, right? I pay my credit card bill at least 6 to 8 times a month. So every week I'm sending a payment just to make sure that there's not that much stacked up. So now, is that my own personal bills? No, probably is a little bit of flight stuff. I mean, fuel and that kind of stuff. But 99.9% of it is all related to purchase of construction materials, to purchase of, if we're doing Airbnbs, all the business related expenses, right? It's not debt that I'm taking on. But yet, if you look at somebody, oh my God, right? That is actually, we have the money to pay, we're putting it on the credit card, and then for 2 reasons. Number 1, I can always back charges if something falsely gets on there. Number 2, you're getting a bunch of points using credit cards the way it's supposed to be used. That is not bad debt. Now, me buying, having 3 ridiculously expensive cars and an airplane, right? Maybe airplane, I can justify that as business expense. But the rest of it, if I'm doing that, I have to do that in relation to my income, right? And so debt is not bad. The real estate debt does not bother me a bit. I mean, it does not bother me to the least at all whatsoever, period, as long as it's the right type of debt, right? Because I don't put huge amount of debts on my properties. I just don't believe in it. I'm not one of those people. But yet, just to say, oh my God, I don't want to be in debt. I genuinely believe that if you have your home, this is just my belief system. Your home should be paid off. If it's not, you should put it on a quick payment plan, right? Pay every month, and every single month on the 15th of the month, take your total monthly bill. So let's just say your total monthly payment is, let's say $1,500. You divide it by 6. Pay that on the 15th every single month. You don't have to pay a lot of money. Just pay your bill on the 1st, like you would your mortgage. And then on the 15th, just pay a 1/6 of that payment extra, right? What will happen, that's not money you're going to miss. For most people, it's going to be a few $100s and you're not going to miss it. I promise you, you're not going to miss it for the year. But guess what's going to happen? It's going to pay off your debt in 15 years. On a 30-year mortgage, it'll pay it off in 15 years. Very simple. Because I genuinely believe your own home should be completely paid off. Your investment properties Minimum. 5 of your investment properties should be 100% free or clear, especially if you have small houses, right? You have a $200,000 house, $300,000 house, you should not go and have debt on everything. Beyond that, because see that what that'll do is that'll set you up for eternal success. Once that is done, beyond that, have as much debt as possible, because then you don't have to worry about it. I've always felt a basic thing that if you take care of real estate for the first 5 years, real estate will take care of you for the rest of your life, right? And I live that message. Doesn't matter how many cars I buy or crazy things I do. One thing I never do is I do not take my cash flow and I ever spend it on my personal play money, right? That is money I never touch, period. I only buy more assets with it. And that's one discipline I've had since 2011 till this day. Having said that, hopefully there's lots of stuff. There's one point, last one I missed, which is probably one of the biggest ones, and that is lack of support, right? The fear that I don't have a support system. Today, guys, mastery is what it is because of one thing. We are a support system for thousands of people. Right? They were a support system for me. Chicago RIA, what you see me doing today, right? If you're watching this, you're a support system for me, because I know there's a group of people out there that like real estate, that we have a similar thought. We may not even know each other personally, but guess what? We're connected by a thin thread, and that thin thread is this hope that, hey, if we're investing, if we're doing the right thing over time, it's going to work. A lot of people, right? And I've been there where when I was married for about 3.5 years, is what I lacked at home was the support system. Because even though I was married to a nice person, nothing negative, but this person did not understand that when you're trying to do something new, when you're scared, when you're fearful, when you don't want to admit, oh my God, what happens if I fail? I don't want to make anybody, I didn't want to make my parents feel that, oh my God, our kid failed, tried this real estate thing and it failed. Right? Nobody wants that. Nobody likes that. That creates a lot of anxiety, creates a lot of tension. And then if the person at home doesn't understand that, what it does is it causes you to shut down, because you don't know where to turn. You don't know what to say, and you're yourself not sure as to exactly, you think you're doing the right thing, but you don't know where to go. And that creates a lot of stress. So that last point is something so critical. That if you're part of the group, if you're part of Mastery, guys, plug in, because without that support system, right, you cannot grow. The results that we have in Mastery, right, about close to now 1,300 people with over 19,000 houses and counting. This is just the rental properties, 19,000. The reason why the per person productivity is not because I have all the answers, or not because we can give somebody the perfect way of doing a calculation. The one reason is what I'm probably the most proud of, is that we have a support system where a brand new person, right? Someone like Miss Mona Linda, what is going on this week, can start from scratch. And you have the support system in terms of, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right deal? Can you help me analyze it? Can you help me come take a look at the property? Can I get funding from a private money lender that I never know? Right? I don't know who they are yet, because it's within that, it's that support system. And that support system is what builds absolute empires, right? Somebody once said, you ask for help not because you're weak, you ask for help because you want to stay strong. And guys, this is what it is all about. If you want to grow, you want to be successful, you need a team. Real estate especially is a team sport. Being afraid, being fearful is normal. Having said that, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's message. Again, make sure you invite your friends, you invite your family to Burr Cash Flow. And this is Andrew, and we'll talk